You bringing up the National Corvette Museum. That's it's pretty cool. I gotta say, when I first heard it, I thought a whole museum just for the Corvette. But then I got to thinking, the Corvette, it's in a league of its own, wouldn't you say?
It really is. I mean, you could even argue it's practically woven into, like, the fabric of American culture, you know?
Yep.
It represents ingenuity, constantly pushing the limits of design, engineering, and, of course, you can't forget that undeniable allure of, well, horsepower.
Oh, absolutely. Can't forget about the horsepower.
Yeah.
You know, when we were looking over the articles and historical pieces on the museum itself, I was genuinely surprised to learn it wasn't like some corporate project.
Right.
It was really the Corvette community. All those enthusiasts who came together rallied to create a space to celebrate this automotive legend.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. What you see with a lot of car museums is this way they tap into a sense of nostalgia.
Oh, for sure.
Appreciation for both, like the design, the mechanics, all of it. But the National Corvette Museum, being right across from the Corvette assembly plant,
Oh, wow.
that makes it more than just a museum, I think. It's like a living, breathing testament to a legacy that's still being written.
You're right. It's the past and the present all in one place. Now, the museum itself, it opened its doors back in '94, but the story really begins with that very first model,
Yeah.
the '53 Corvette. And naturally, that's got a prime spot in the museum.
It's the genesis, the spark, you know. And
Yeah.
did you know the name Corvette, it actually has nautical roots? Refers to a small, swift warship,
Huh.
known for maneuverability. Myron Scott, who worked at GM, felt that the name it embodied the spirit of this sporty new car.
And the rest, as they say. History. Speaking of Corvette history, there's this thing, kind of a head-scratcher I found going through everything. This '83 Corvette.
Oh, yeah.
Lone survivor, the fact that every other model from that year was destroyed during testing, it definitely makes you wonder, you know.
It does sound like something straight out of like a mystery novel or something.
Yeah.
But it also highlights how the museum, it's not just about celebrating the successes. It's about acknowledging those bumps along the way.
Right.
The '83 model, it represents a pivotal moment, a time of big change for the Corvette. And while, you know, the exact reasons for scrapping all the others, that remains kind of shrouded in mystery.
Yeah.
It speaks to the meticulous testing, that constant drive for improvement that goes on behind the scenes.
You almost wish those other '83s, they could, like, talk, tell us what went wrong or what they learned from them.
Right.
Now, every great car museum has to have its rare prototypes, the concept cars. And from what I've seen, this one doesn't disappoint.
Absolutely not. And those aren't just like shiny objects, you know? They offer us a glimpse into these alternate timelines, roads not taken, the what ifs. It really gets you thinking. What design choices were on the table, what directions were almost taken, the prototypes, they spark our imagination, reminding us even something as iconic as the Corvette, it was once a work in progress, constantly evolving.
It really makes you think, huh, all those paths they could have gone down. But speaking of unexpected turns, there's one event we just can't ignore. The sinkhole.
Oh, yeah.
Not your everyday museum story.
No, not at all. In 2014, the museum's Sky Dome, that impressive glass atrium, it experienced this dramatic collapse, to say the least. Hard to wrap your head around at these prized Corvettes, just swallowed up by the earth.
It's wild. And the photos you share, the aftermath, just incredible.
It's a lot to take in, that's for sure.
What really struck me, though, was how the museum responded.
Yeah.
I mean, instead of trying to brush it under the rug, they actually made it part of the story, part of the museum itself.
Yeah.
Even left some of the recovered Corvettes in their, well, damaged state. That says something, don't you think? About resilience, maybe?
It's really remarkable, turning a disaster into like this opportunity for learning. And those cars, the stories they could tell, it's not just the shock value, you know. The sinkhole, it sparks all these questions about geology, engineering, those unexpected forces that can just reshape our world in an instant. Frankly, I would have been right there with you, checking out that exhibit. Sounds fascinating.
A unique blend of history and natural disaster, to say the least.
Yeah.
Sort of not your average museum display. But you know, the National Corvette Museum, it's not just about static displays. They've got some really unique experiences, really immersive stuff. One that caught my eye. This whole museum delivery program. Can you imagine picking up your brand new Corvette right there on the museum floor? Talk about the ultimate celebration.
That's brilliant. Taking something so, I don't know, ordinary, like picking up your car and turning it into this event. It shows that they get it, you know? A Corvette, it's not just a car. It's an embodiment of aspiration screams.
The open road, the whole deal. Yeah.
Exactly. And what better way to mark that than surrounded by its legacy, right?
The ultimate showroom. And for those who want a little more, let's say, adrenaline, they've got the Motorsports Park right there. So we've talked about the history, the design, but this is where you actually get to experience what a Corvette can do, to really put it through its paces. What do you think of that side of things for what you read?
Well, it's a natural fit, isn't it? I mean, why just admire the engineering when you can hear that engine roar, feel the thrill of the open track?
Exactly. Takes it from this passive thing to, like, you're part of it. Reading about handling, performance, that's one thing. But to get behind the wheel, that's going to be something else. There's nothing quite like it, I bet, to really get a feel for it.
There isn't. It's really about, like you said, not just looking at the past, but understanding what makes the Corvette such a, well, a thrill to drive even now. It kind of feeds into that whole living museum idea, right? You're not just observing history, you're part of it in this really, I don't know, visceral way.
Yeah.
And speaking of being a part of something, what about the community aspect? It's clear from everything we've seen that the National Corvette Museum, it really fosters this strong sense of community among enthusiasts. Anything strike you about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they've got all the events, of course, but even just reading about that museum delivery program, it's almost like a pilgrimage for Corvette lovers, a place to just connect with people who get it, who share that passion.
It really shows how a shared passion, especially for something like a car, can create those lasting bonds, shared experiences. And the museum becomes this gathering place, a focal point for celebrating not just the car, but the whole culture, the history.
It really elevates the whole idea of what a car museum can be, don't you think?
It does.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the National Corvette Museum, the thing that gets me is how this one car, the Corvette, it sparked so much passion, fascination for decades. From those design innovations to, well, let's just say those unexpected geological events.
Right.
It's a story that just keeps going.
It does make you wonder, though, what object or passion holds that kind of significance for you in your own life? What would your own personal museum be? Filled with the things, the stories, the memories that made you, you.
Now, that is a fantastic question. What do we cherish? What connects us? How do we celebrate those stories? It might be time we all become our own curators, huh?